Welcome into episode 25 of the Bleav in Twins podcast. Happy election day to everyone. Make sure that you're going out and voting wherever you're located in whatever method you so choose. If you've decided to vote early, good for you. My name is Pryor, joined by my wonderful co-host, analyst, and Twins expert, Zac Tipton. Zac, great to see you as always. Zac, my wonderful co-host, who is currently sitting in Mountain Time with daylight savings, which I still don't really fully understand what it is, but we're gonna roll with it anyway.
Well, you're not from the Midwest, so you don't need to understand what daylight savings time is. Okay, daylight savings time is a Midwest thing that was created in the Midwest because farmlands.
Right.
Because farming. So no, absolutely, guys, go vote. Like, for sure, do that. That is very important. Obviously, use your right. I don't want to sound like a hypocrite because I unfortunately was not able to vote. My absentee ballot got lost in the mail. And so basically, I just had a whole issue with my absentee ballot. I did not get my absentee ballot on time, and I was not able to send it back in time. So I was not able to vote in this election. But for those of you that are able to vote, go vote. Because it is your civic duty, and it is a really important part of this process and stuff like that. And so if you want a candidate, no matter what candidate you want, go vote. And your vote does matter.
Yeah, no, it does. A lot of people say like, oh, my vote can't really do any good, for whatever, but it'll do more good than harm, that I can tell you. And, the reason that we get all of these states that are decided years before an election even starts, like California, New York going blue, or, Alabama, Mississippi going red. The reason that those states are decided so early on is because people turn out to vote. People saying that, okay, even though all of my peers and co-residents are thinking the exact same thing as me, I'm going to go say something anyway. And that's how those decisions happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, exactly. Like I'm from a state that is, me and Anders are both from states that are both very pre-decided already. Like, I'm from South Dakota. I know where my state's going. My state's going to be decided in the first second after polls close.
Yep.
The decision up that says South Dakota is going for and it's 3 electoral votes are going for Trump.
Right.
Anders, New York, and I forget how many electoral votes. 29 electoral votes are going to Harris. So you'll see that, but it's still important to vote, and it's still important to use your civic duty there. When you guys get the chance, please take your time today. Go find a poll near you, and go vote.
Big time.
It's very important. But with that, obviously, we are a sports podcast here, and we will have to talk about some sports here. But Anders, obviously, we'll talk about some sports here. Obviously, it was a good week. In terms of me, not a great week for Anders over here. Actually, wait, no, I think the Jets did win, didn't they?
The Jets did win.
The Jets did win. I'm wrong. For some reason, I think I lost.
On Halloween, where all kinds of evil opposite day stuff happens. No, Jets got a win against a quality opponent. And, we have Arizona coming up, which is a much tougher game than we anticipated. They're 5-4 at the moment. Their offense...
I can't confirm. I watched them play a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. No, their offense is excellent. And they just they're on I believe it's a 4-game winning streak. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they're on fire right now. They're on fire, and I'm happy to see it.
They're on fire. Drew Petzing has done a great job there. But outside of that, a lot of those really kind of heavy, bulky stuff, like the San Francisco, and playing them, etc., kind of got those out of the way. Obviously, beating Houston is a huge help, especially because Houston has had some weird games in recent weeks, and that tiebreaker might come into play at some point. We'll have to see. But on the Twins side of things, we've had big week in terms of news, roster decisions,
A
players,
lot of them.
a lot of them, free agency options, player options, people not being invited back, whatever it is, a lot of moves going down. And so
I will run through these here just so we can get them in there.
yep,
Because there are a lot.
there are
The Twins dropped 5 players from their 40-man roster in the first round of house season. Again, I want to thank Aaron Gleeman. He's a Twins reporter that kind of posted all this, so I'm kind of just going off of his Twitter, although I have seen all these, and so I have a thought. But Junior Severino, who was once a top prospect for us, Josh Winder, who was once a top prospect for us, Scott Blewett, who was a relief pitcher we signed in the offseason, Randy Dobnak, who was not a top prospect for us, but was a quick riser through the system and did have a bunch of MLB time for us. Randy Dobnak was also dropped, and then Daniel Duarte, who was another player who was another relief pitcher we signed in the offseason, this past offseason. All 5 of those guys were dropped from the 40-man. The only one surprising to me really is Josh Winder. I think Winder's kind of been a young guy, and he was supposed to be he was a number 6 prospect at one point, so he was a really high level prospect for us. He was like our top pitching prospect at one point, and so I think to see him kind of already losing his spot on the 40-man is kind of surprising to me. I don't expect to see him outside the Twins organization. I expect to see him possibly, back with us here at some point maybe next year. I don't know how that works when you drop players from 40-man. I don't know how that exactly works, but that's that. And then the main thing here that we're going to talk about is 6 free agents the Twins have here are officially gone, including some really big names for us. Yep. So Max Kepler is the biggest name of the bunch. Kepler has been a perennial, big time name for us. He's been on our team since 2016 or 17, I want to say. I forget when he made his debut, but Max Kepler has been, a stalwart of our lineup in our rotation. He made his debut in 2015. He's been a stalwart of our rotation. He had that insane year back in the Bumba squad year where he had over 30 home runs in a season. He's been almost incredible for us in the outfield. He's been holding down that left field wall for a really long time for us, and so for our right field wall, I think. My bad. And so for us to lose him is always been a sad thing, but we knew it was coming. So again, thank you for everything, Max Kepler. You've been huge for us. We love that. And then Carlos Santana.
Yep.
He's another guy that, he just won a Gold Glove for us. Obviously, another news I was going to bring up is Santana officially was named the Gold Glove winner at first base this year, which he was deservedly so. He was one of the best first basemen in baseball defensively. And so I'm just shouting to him, and he was huge for us this year. He had a lot of clutch hits mid-season for us. And so it is sad to see him go as well. There's a chance I've seen that, one of those guys might get resigned here. But another guy that is really hard to see go, Caleb Thielbar, been really a stalwart of our bullpen for, 3-4 years now. Kind of this old guy that made his MLB debut at like 30 years old. And he's kind of been this old guy that is kind of just there now, but he's been awesome. So obviously it is sad to see him leave us, but he had a rough season, rough year this year for him, but he's getting the old, but still huge shout to him for what he's done for us. And obviously he's a South Dakota kid, so that hurts me a little bit too. And he went to South Dakota State. So that does hurt. But then a couple other few big names here. So 3 more names here. Another big one that was kind of, a big name for us, Kyle Former. He was put on waivers. He was released free agently. And so that's another big name. That's like, he was kind of our stalwart of he was like our glue of the locker room kind of guy. He was kind of like a glue of the locker room kind of guy. And he wasn't great this year. He was actually really bad this year, but he was still kind of a glue of the locker room kind of guy. So to lose him is hard. And then the last 2 here, Manuel Margot, who goodbye.
Right.
Don't come back.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Again, don't come back. Manuel Margot, and then Anthony Desclafani, who we acquired in the Jorge Polanco trade, who
Yep.
basically got hurt.
It was the Giants, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
It's the Mariners.
Oh, sorry. That's right.
He went to the Giants, the Mariners, and then we
in the what was it? It was like was it the Mitch Haniger?
yeah, Desclafani won't be back. Manuel it was the Jorge Polanco trade.
That's right. Okay.
Jorge Polanco trade. That's what I said. Jorge Polanco. Yeah, Manuel Margot. He's cut and he won't be back again. Neither of those two will be back. But Kyle Farmer is probably gone. Unfortunately, it is sucks to see him. But there's But if Thielbar is willing to sign in like an inexpensive deal or like a cheap deal to come back, I'd assume the Twins probably would make that happen. But he's probably gone. I also find it very hard to believe that they bring Santana back. But there is a chance that, considering our first baseman position is now not really there with Kirilloff retiring, which we talked about in our last podcast. Go check that out. We did an emergency podcast when Alex Kirilloff announced his retirement. That was that. And then the main thing here is I think Kepler is probably gone.
Yeah. So it's kind of there's a twofold. The Ryan Jeffers thing is weird, like because he did not have a great year this year, and I think he's
Ryan Jeffers. What do you mean Ryan Jeffers?
Ryan Jeffers. Excuse me, Kyle Farmer. Why did I say Ryan Jeffers? Excuse me. No, Ryan Jeffers is what? No, please.
Not Ryan Jeffers.
Kyle Farmer has had some good years. I think
he had one okay year for us.
Yeah, the 2020, 2022, I think.
No, 2023. 2023.
Excuse me.
He was part of that playoff run. But he's only been on our team for 2 years.
Right. So 2020, yeah. So I think Kepler. So there's there's the baseball part of this, and then there's the Twins part of it. I think from a baseball part of it, the Santana not being invited back is not is kind of the big one. I think the age part of it is I think the biggest factor there. I think I want to say he's 37, 38 years old. And, a lot of big, first baseman free agents have been linked to the Twins, with varying capacity. And so my guess is that this coming off the Gold Glove of the year, this has to mean that the Twins believe they have a legitimate shot at one of these top 6 or 7 first baseman free agents. Otherwise, there would be no point in letting him go coming off the defensive year that he just had. So that's kind of from a baseball one, that's kind of the most kind of interesting and maybe puzzling one. Obviously, from a Twins fan's perspective, I think the Kepler one is sort of the kind of gut wrench a little bit. I think just looking at his stat, I can't even remember the last time he batted over 210 in a season. If I'm just looking at, excuse me. Yeah, the last time, he's batted. Oh no, not 210. What am I talking about? 253 this year, 260 the previous year. The obviously did not reach 400. Did not reach 400 slugging this year. Only 8 home runs. So that one I think kind of sucks the most, just like on the inside, even though the Santana one is sort of like the most like, like other than age, like there's no real reason to not bring him back. So, I
agree. So it's unfortunate. Obviously, I'm really sad. Oh my God, I'm blurry again. The hell?
Yeah.
It obviously is hard to see Kepler go. I'll figure out my blur here eventually. I'll talk. It's hard to see Kepler go. because obviously as a Twins fan, we've grown up alongside him.
Yep.
We watched him. He was part of that. He was the last part of that like core of Miguel Sano, Eddie Rosario, Jorge Polanco, Max Kepler, and Byron Buxton, and like Nelson Cruz. Like that was like that core of like 7 guys that we had there.
Yep.
Not Nelson Cruz, but like the 6 other guys I mentioned. That was kind of the core of us there. So to lose him is hard. Like to lose Kepler is hard because obviously now Buxton's kind of the last one standing here. And we'll see how much longer he's standing, to be completely honest with you.
Right.
But no, it is unfortunate. But it's sad to see Kepler go. And then moving on with that, Kepler, sad to see go. Farmer was really fun to have around, and he really was a good glue guy in the clubhouse. He was a good clubhouse leader for us.
Yep.
So Farmer's sad to see go that way. On the field, he wasn't good, but just clubhouse leader, he was good to have around. And then, like I said, Thielbar was a guy that kind of held on our bullpen for a lot of years. He was like the oldest member of our bullpen, in terms of like guys that have been there long enough. And so lose Thielbar was rough. And then, that's really it. Santana, he's only been there for a year. He was really with the Guardians for a lot longer. So it's not sad to see him go. I'm glad he had a good year for us, but it's not really sad to see him go.
Sure.
He didn't really play well down the stretch either. There were a lot of guys that didn't play well down the stretch for us, and he was one of them.
Yeah, 211 batting average this year. No, sorry, not 211. Excuse me, 214 batting average this year. 256 last year. And yes, Zach was correct. I for some reason thought that 2021 was Farmer's last year with the Reds. It was 2022. So I misspoke. Thank you for the correction.
Yeah, no, we signed Farmer in 2023.
That's right.
So,
okay.
That was really sad. So there's a lot of moves there that is like, and they're not like small names either. Like those are a lot of big Twins names that we lost in that section there. But the only one that I really believe that we could actually bring back, well, 2 actually. I think we could bring back Santana just in case our first baseman strategy doesn't work out because we don't have a first baseman right now.
Right.
So if Kirilloff does, because if Kirilloff died, we don't have a first baseman. So if Santana, I could see us bringing Santana back, and then the second one is I could see Thielbar coming back if he's willing to take like a pretty cheap deal.
Yeah.
I could see Thielbar coming back for another year. But with that being said, that is the big Twins news. Like I mean, like other than that, like nothing really new. But I think next week, me and Anders will do like a thing where we actually maybe make predictions on who the Twins will sign, or maybe guys the Twins can sign and bring in.
Yep.
And so me and Anders will do some research there and figure out what guys we could actually bring in now.
Yep.
But until then, that's really all we have for Twins news today.
Yeah.
Because that's really all it was. Although shout out to Santana for winning Gold Glove.
Obviously, Pete Alonso is available and Paul Goldschmidt is available. I think the right time for the Twins to trade for Goldschmidt was the trade deadline of last year when the Cardinals were reeling. But obviously, if you can't get one of those like top guys that's available, I think Santana would be someone I would be more than happy to see come back to the organization. Yeah.
No, I agree. So then with that, very simply, let's talk some other sports here. Because let's talk. I want to bring up shout out to the Vikings. So Minnesota sports, shout out to the Vikings for kind of getting back in the win column there with the win against the Rams. That was a really big win for us. That was a big win we needed a win there. We needed a win versus the Colts there. And so it was really good to see that. It was an ugly game. I thought Sam Darnold actually played well despite the 2 very ugly interceptions that he threw. And then, of course, the fumble as well. Like, besides that, I thought he played really well. But he's learned to hold on to the football and not be as aggressive.
And this is the first time, and you tell me, and I know it was Joe Flacco, and he's older, so maybe this is not, like, the world's, like, most, like, like introspective take in the world, but like this is the first time that the Brian Flores defense. I don't even think Flacco got to 180 yards passing. This is the first time that the Brian Flores defense has made a quarterback just look physically uncomfortable in a few games now. And so hopefully this is kind of a right.
And the Twins are in their like easy stretch of the season, so I'm assuming this will probably continue because we have the Jaguars and Titans. I know that in the next Jaguars, Titans, and Bears in the next 3 games, I think. So you know, all 3 of those games should be, besides maybe the Caleb Williams game, because Caleb Williams can move around the pocket and stuff. I'm excited to see that Caleb Williams versus this Vikings defense. I'm excited for that game when that game comes. But
the Bears, you know, the Bears are starting in terms of like the NFC North, like kind of picture and how it plays out. Because if there's one team,
the Bears are falling out. The Bears are falling out.
Yes, because you don't want the Bears to have like a second surge like that. You know, they had that like kind of first surge where I think they won like 4 out of 5 or something, or whatever it was. If they you know, they started, you know, that first win and then they reeled off and then now they've regained some ground. If you can beat them, not only to just give them more losses, but then just strategically set up that tiebreaker, then that becomes especially important. And it becomes even more important as the Lions just improve even more every week and just get better every week. Because right now it does look like their division. And so the Vikings might need a wild card to get to the postseason. And so those tiebreakers with the Bears and with the Packers, the one that they picked up earlier in the year, become increasingly important as the year goes on. So yes, that's a really big game. And that is a game that you're really hoping where Caleb has one of those sort of like bizarre rookie, like 2 interception games or something like that.
Yeah. I'm curious there, for sure. But that's NFL. I want to bring up 2 more Minnesota teams because now NBA season has officially started, which means we can talk about the T-Wolves a little bit on this show because it is a Minnesota sports team, so we can talk about the T-Wolves a little bit. They're 4-3, all 3 losses coming against like contenders, I would say. I don't know if you consider the Spurs contenders, but the Spurs have looked really good recently, and they looked really good in that game versus the Wolves.
They haven't lost to like a total cupcake. They have not. None of their losses are against like the Wizards or the Hornets or something.
Yeah. The Spurs looked good in that game, and then I thought, you know, we lost the Mavs and the Lakers, which are both like honestly not great losses, but right now I'm a little worried because it does feel like the Wolves are like, we're able to beat Denver and no one else. That's what it feels like right now in terms of like contender mode. Like, are the Wolves just a team that's like, we're going to beat Denver whenever we play them, but when we play another top team in the West, we're going to lose that game because we aren't built to beat those teams. So it's a little worrying for me to see us lose early to like Denver, San Antonio, Los Angeles, because like our wins aren't, because our only good win is against Denver, because it's like, great, we can beat Denver. We've shown that already. Can we beat these other great teams? So that is a little concerning for me. Anders, your thoughts on like that start and like the start here for the NBA?
I'm not worried about the Timberwolves long term. Obviously, you know, when you make such a monumental trade that close to the start of the season, you're going to have some chemistry kinks that you need to kind of work out through in that kind of first 10 to 15 game span. So I'm not incredibly worried about like the win-loss stuff with them. I think they're going to be a top 3 seed in the West again. My question to you is, Zach, is that you and I think both, you know, when we were doing, you know, we've done some draft coverage together, and I am curious about what your thoughts are on the lack of appearance from Rob Dillingham, because that was someone, you know, that the Timberwolves, you know, traded like legitimate future assets for to go and acquire.
I would say early on here, I'm not too worried about that because he is a rookie and our team is very deep that we haven't needed him yet.
Right.
I hope throughout the year we get more from him. But then again, like we did bring in Dante, which was kind of his role.
That's true. No,
Dillingham's role was kind of what Dante's role is now. Like he
right.
was supposed to be that off the bench shooter guy that we brought in that could hit from anywhere, and we could just throw him in there and be a quick shot.
Right.
We brought in Dante, which is the exact same role that Rob Dillingham plays. Like that is Dante's role to a T. He's gonna be off the bench and scoring points.
And obviously, excuse me, Mike Conley's 37 years old. Right? Like we kind of don't really know how much longer he's going to be playing for. So maybe it's kind of like a thing of we're drafting Dillingham because we don't think that we're going to get someone good enough. As long as we have we're not going to have a draft pick good enough to, like we're not going to have a draft pick good enough to get someone who we think can like cogently replace him. And so we're just going to do that this year and kind of have him be more like over the next 2 years, really integrate him, so unless injury happens, but maybe that's another way to look at it that makes it less anxious. But obviously from just like a pure watching standpoint, it kind of does suck a little bit because you do really want him. You want to see him play because in the couple plays that he has had, in his 4 career points, he does look really athletic and really twitchy, and from a movement standpoint and a mechanics standpoint, in limited sample, comes across as advertised. So I really hope that he does get integrated into the rotation more. Like I think your point about Dante kind of joining the team last minute is a fair one. I think if that trade doesn't happen, we see more of Rob, but I hope that they find ways to put him in the offense to some
degree. I hope so as well. And then moving on to our last Minnesota Sporty that we have to talk about because, frankly, they're surprising me, and I think they're surprising a lot of people here. The Golden Gophers have now won, I want to say 4 straight or 3 straight here. Yep. They just beat their second top 25 team in 2 weeks. They beat USC, I want to say 3 weeks ago, and then they beat Illinois, number 25 ranked Illinois this week, 25-17. Minnesota has officially qualified for a bowl game, which if you told me that 2 weeks into the season, I probably would have said you're insane.
Right.
Because that Minnesota team didn't look like they deserved to be on the same field. PJ Fleck probably should have been fired 4 weeks ago, right. And now he's gonna probably have a job for. Now he's gonna have a job for more years. So it's like it's nuts. Like what is happening? Like the Golden Gophers, and a lot of that has to do with one of my favorite players in college football, which is Corey Perch. I don't know if you know who that is, Anders. I don't know if you know that name at all.
I don't think so.
He's going to be one of the top cornerback prospects. I don't want to say this draft, but maybe next year's draft. He's a top cornerback for them. He's a ball hawk. I want to say he's like 6 interceptions already. Corey Perch is a beast. And I am loving what I'm seeing in Minnesota right now. And obviously, I'm not a Golden Gopher fan. Like I want to make that clear.
The only Golden Gopher that I know is that the only Golden Gopher that I know, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his name, is Ariante Ursery, the offensive tackle. He's the only person that I really know.
I mean, yeah. So basically, what it is so Coy Parrish is a true freshman at Minnesota. He's a cornerback, true freshman, 6'1", 200, and I want to believe that so far in 2024. He already has why can't I find it? 1 second. I need why doesn't it show? Hold up. I'm gonna pull up stats here. I'm trying to I don't know his exact time. I want to say he already has like multiple. He for sure has he definitely has more than he definitely has like multiple pick sixes. One second, I can't find those out. Why can't I get it open? Here we go. Yeah, here we go. I got it. So he has 1 forced fumble and 5 interceptions.
Okay.
And I think it's what now, 9 games. And he's basically like, I mean, I'm telling you, like he had an interception versus USC, he had 2 interceptions versus UCLA. He had an interception versus Maryland. It's just he's been on fire, and so it's great to see him. I'm loving Corey Parrish. He's gonna be a beast, and he's a white cornerback, so that's just another dub also. So,
just the existence,
just the existence of it. But anyway, so yeah, shout out to Minnesota, the Golden Gophers here. They have a bowl game now, and they're legit looking like they might have a chance of finishing the season ranked if they continue playing this way.
Which would be unbelievable
No. But they do have a couple of games they need to win here late. They have Penn State and Wisconsin late here, which I don't know if they win either of those, but if they win either of those, like that's massive for the program. PJ Fleck once again saves his job for 4 more years.
Right.
And
I feel pretty good about them taking care of Wisconsin. Penn State, we'll see.
It's such a weird year. Does it feel like it's a weird year in college football, Anders, this year?
Well, I don't think so. I was having like a thought about this the other day, but now I feel like that you brought it up as like a question. Like it actually kind of like I feel like I can phrase it off the top of my head. Like I think the reason it seems more like a weird year or like a crazy year is because with the new playoff format, more and more games have implications. And so therefore more and more games are actually worthy of discussion. And so we're talking about more things than we have over the past decade. And so the kind of news space for college football feels more like kind of crowded, than it used to be. Like we're still talking, if you look at the rankings, and stuff that's coming up, if Penn State could beat Minnesota in a couple weeks, we usually wouldn't talk about that for a while, but now down that stretch, it's going to be a huge point of discussion. The Ashton Gianti stuff, it would be so dishonest to say. I mean, obviously, if someone's on pace to break Barry's records to some capacity, we're going to discuss it a little bit. But the fact that we could see Boise State and Gianti playing games, meaningful games in late December, makes it even more worthy of discussion. So there's more to talk about, which is why it feels so weird. Now, I will say this, the fact that Bama has 2 losses definitely helps. I really hope they don't make the playoffs.
It would be awesome if there's a 12-team playoff and Bama misses it.
That would be
nuts.
Insane. That would be
insane. That would be the most nuts thing ever, because it's the reason we're having this playoffs, the reason they created this playoffs was so when Bama finishes as the 5 seed every year, they can still get in the playoffs. And now they missed a 12-team would be nuts.
The 12-person playoff was designed so that all of those fringe teams like Notre Dame and Penn State and Clemson and Tennessee and Texas A&M from a little bit ago could do something of substance down the stretch, and they could promote those brands and everything like that. Clemson will not make it. The Louisville loss kind of nailed their season. I think they're going to kind of, that's a really interesting one. Obviously, if Minnesota does something against Penn State, I think they're probably out too. The really, really interesting one, Zach. So obviously, if LSU beats Alabama, Alabama's 100% done. They're completely cooked. I'm interested to see if LSU wins that game, if they get reintroduced into the playoff poll. The really fascinating one for me personally, because I think there's a real chance that this happens, is what if Ole Miss beats Georgia and puts Georgia to 2 losses? Because then, because Ole Miss is a 2-loss team.
You think that actually has a chance of happening? Because I don't think Ole Miss is.
I think Carson Beck, he has 11 interceptions in 5 games. He looks like he's completely off. I don't think it's more likely to happen than not, but I'm saying it's within a reasonable set of outcomes. And that's really interesting because right now, Georgia, I Bleav, is the 2 seed. And then you get this really interesting dynamic where it's like, okay, like, let's say Georgia and Alabama both finish the year. I am getting a phone call. I will not be picking that up because I'm in my bag right now.
Yeah,
If
you are. You are.
And Georgia and Alabama both finished the year with 2 losses, and Alabama has the head-to-head. That's really, because if Alabama wins out, they're gonna that assumes they're gonna beat LSU and they'll kind of be a little bit elevated there. That becomes really interesting. So if
my question is, Anders, and I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If Indiana beats Michigan and Purdue but loses to Ohio State, are they in?
Probably.
Like, let's say it's okay. Let me replay that. If they lose to Ohio State close.
Oh no! If they lose to Ohio State within 1 score, they're in.
Let's change it to that blowout. Like if they lose to let's say 2.5 scores, not 3, like 2.5.
If Ohio State beats Indiana 37-21,
like 17-point game, like a 17-point game. Is Indiana in, or will they get knocked out for an SEC school? That's the real.
I don't. No, I think if they whoop Michigan, if it looks similar like the Texas game, and if they whoop Purdue, which I think they obviously will, then I think you can. Then I think you're starting to sniff top 10 top 5 territory for Indiana.
Okay.
So I think they'll it depends on if it's a close game, then I think they're safe. If it's a blowout, then it will have to depend on how the Michigan and Purdue.
The real question for me, Anders, then is does Curt Cignetti stay in Indiana, or do you think he takes a higher job next year? Because I've seen a lot of reports that say he's going to be one of the highest names. All teams are going to target him for a position,
right?
If a big team comes open. Do you think Cignetti takes that offer somewhere else, or do you think he stays in Indiana?
I think he'll probably stay in Indiana. I mean, he has a history of being in places for long periods of time, despite having insane success. Like he could have left JMU 2 years in, but he chose to stay through the conference restructuring, going from FCS to FBS. Obviously, there's speculation, right? Like, would he take, and I'm just throwing stuff out there, would he take the Auburn job? When Freeze is done, would he take the Florida job if they move on from Napier?
Which looks basically a for sure going to happen.
If Dabo shocks the world and leaves Clemson, if they have another just awful loss, would he take that job? But I really do think he's going to stay at Indiana. That would be my guess. I have one more college football question for you, Zach.
Yes.
But before we wrap up here, the most interesting team in this whole thing to me is Miami, because I think they can win the whole thing.
I don't.
So, well, that's fine. But there is a group of people that think that because right now they're the 6th seed, right? They're the 6th seed in college.
They're 4 right now.
No, they were 6 last week. Now they're 4. They're a 4 seed in college football. And there's a group of people that believes, and again,
here's the thing with Miami is they have Cam Ward. That is Miami, right? Exactly. They have Cam Ward.
Now, obviously, it changes a lot because Clemson lost to Louisville, and so Miami's path to the ACC holder seed has no hurdles. It's nothing. They're fine. My question is there's a group of people that believe that if Clemson was in like legitimate contention for the ACC still, and Miami held equal, and Miami lost one of these next games to a really easy opponent, that they should not be they should be from like a top 4 in the AP to not even in the playoffs at all. And so I just kind of want your thoughts on where you see them in sort
Well, here's
of.
the thing. One ACC team has to get in because that's the rules.
Right.
So Miami's basically, I would say Miami's basically in unless they lost the ACC championship game, in which case, if they lose an easy game and then they lose the ACC championship game, there's a question there, right?
Right.
Like if Miami loses, okay, let me pull Miami's schedule so I know what I'm actually talking about. If Miami loses, let's say to Duke, to Georgia Tech, or to Wake Forest, all of which they should win, but if for some reason they finally don't get a call go their way, on a Hail Mary that should have been called a touchdown but wasn't. If they somehow don't get the break they need, and they lose a game to Duke, Wake Forest, or Georgia Tech here, and then they lose the ACC championship game,
Right,
to whoever they play. It might be Clemson, it might not. I don't know who they
might be SMU. We're not really sure yet.
I'm not really sure who they play in the ACC championship game. If they have 2 losses, they're out.
Correct. Yes.
If they have 2 losses, they're out. If they lose one of these easy games to Duke, Wake Forest, or whatever, and then they win their ACC championship game, they should be in.
Right.
If they win out and then lose the ACC championship game, they should still be in. Because they'll at least play a team that is probably going to be ranked. Like if they play SMU, isn't SMU ranked? Like aren't they a top 25 team? They're 13. So if they play SMU and lose to SMU, but it's like a close ACC championship game, they should still be in.
Right. And then you can also make the argument too, like if Miami wins out and they lose to SMU, then you can still have, if you want, you can put both of the teams in. There's no rule that there has to be.
No, they will put both of those teams in. Like, there's no way to kick Miami out for losing a 13 seed SMU, who's at this point, and technically in our rankings, 1 spot out of a playoff.
Right.
Right? They're 1 spot out of a playoff berth.
Right.
So if they lose to an SMU team on a neutral field, right? So I agree. I think Miami is safe unless they lose one of their last regular season games.
Yep.
And they lose the ACC championship.
I agree.
In which case they should be out.
Yep.
So that's my opinion. But I also don't think they'll lose to any of these teams in the regular season. In which case, if they win out of the regular season, I think they're in.
Yeah.
That's my prediction. If they win out in the regular season and they are undefeated headed into the ACC championship game, no matter what happens in the ACC championship game, I think Miami is in.
I think I agree. Yeah.
Because 1 loss, and your 1 loss to a top 15 team should not kill you.
Yeah. No, especially if it's SMU, because they've been really good this year.
I will admit, I don't think Miami should be undefeated. They have gotten 2 pretty bad calls by refs go their way, in which both teams should have won they were playing against. Miami should not be undefeated right now, but they are. And so we can have that discussion of, do I think Miami is actually legit? I do not.
Right.
I'm going to be straight up. I am not a believer in Miami. I'm a believer they are playing in a weak ACC. They have looked bad in a weak ACC, honestly. I don't think they've looked good ever in a weak ACC. And just because they have Cam Ward, that is the only reason why they are legit considered contenders. If they did not have Cam Ward, they would not be considered anywhere near a top 12 team in this team. They'd make the playoffs because they're undefeated, but they would not be considered. They'd be like a Cincinnati from a few years ago that made the bowl game, but no one really thought they were going to have a chance of making it.
Right.
Anywhere. That's me. I don't believe in Miami. And I will say I do not believe in the U. I do not believe in that program right now because of the conference they're in and the competition they're playing.
Yeah. No, obviously the conference seed holder stuff, they definitely benefit from that. But I think they can beat there are SEC teams I think they could beat for sure. But
yeah, there are SEC teams. I think they could beat Florida. I think they could beat Florida for sure.
Well, they will be really congratulations.
I think they could beat Florida.
Really?
You're
wow.
right.
I agree. Zach, sorry, you finish your thought?
Oh, I was gonna say I think they could beat. I'll tell you who I think they could beat. They can beat Mississippi State. They can beat Kentucky. They can beat Auburn. They can beat Oklahoma. They can beat Florida. They can beat Arkansas. They can beat South Carolina. And I'd probably say they can beat Missouri.
Yep.
And God, do I say they can beat Vanderbilt? Because I think Vanderbilt's a beast. Vanderbilt's a wagon.
I think they beat Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt's a wagon. Vanderbilt's a freaking wagon, which I never thought I'd say in my life.
I don't think that they could beat Texas.
I don't think they could beat Georgia. I don't think they could beat Texas A&M. They could not beat Texas. They could not beat Alabama, LSU, or Ole Miss. Ole Miss. Actually, I think they could beat Ole Miss.
What about Tennessee?
I will say Tennessee is the one where I'm like, I think they might be able to do it. I love Tennessee. You know I love Tennessee.
Yeah.
I think Tennessee is on fraud watch. And so, because I look at their wins, and I don't think Nico Iamaleava is playing that well. Yeah. I don't think their offense is playing that well. Tennessee's beatable. And so that, same with Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss and Tennessee are two beatable teams in the SEC. Yeah. I think in a playoff situation, Miami is not beating Bama. They're not beating LSU. They're not beating Texas. They're not beating Georgia. A&M maybe. Just because A&M is probably not like A&M maybe, but they're not.
I would give them like legitimate shots at Ole Miss, Texas A&M, LSU, and Tennessee, and Bama. I think those teams they would have a shot against. I don't think they could beat. Versus, I would give them no chance against Texas or Georgia.
Yeah, no, I agree, dude. Vanderbilt though, Vanderbilt's a wagon. Vanderbilt's a wagon. We love.
No,
we love Vanderbilt here.
This
is a Vanderbilt safe zone.
This is a Vanderbilt safe. This is a Commodore safe space.
Anyway, yes.
Off here, Zach.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's do it.
Because I gotta go vote.
Do your thing.
Right around the corner, so I'm gonna go vote, and I'm gonna turn on CNN.
It's almost election time. I will be turning on. I will be doing like a split. I will be doing like the back and forth of CNN and Fox News because I like to do both.
I was gonna say. I was just saying to someone earlier. It will be spending probably 95% of the night on CNN, but I've seen clips online of I think Fox has some really cool like visual tracking technology that they're debuting. So I want to definitely go check that out. But I've always done CNN for these nights, so I'm going to stick to that. But the podcast doesn't stop for anyone. And we're happy you guys all took time out to listen to us. And so I'll go ahead and sign us off. Zach, great to see you as always.
Yes. It was great to see all of you. Like I said, go vote, do your thing.
Go vote. This has been the Bleav in Twins podcast on the Bleav Network alongside Zac Tipton. I have been Anders Pryor. You can go and download all of our content and all other Bleav Network content that you guys love to listen to on the Bleav.com website. If you want to listen to us, you can check out Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you get your sports media throughout the week. If you are watching us here on YouTube, please subscribe, comment, and turn on post notifications. Go Twins and go vote. Zach, great to see you.
It's amazing to see you.
Pending another emergency podcast. We will talk to you guys next week.
Next week.
All right.
Sounds good.
See you guys.
See ya.